Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Broad YouTube channel with episode 4 of The Rest. As always, I'm your host, Aris Namatakos, and I'm joined by Terry. Once again, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm here after a loss.
I know,
Just back to reality over here. Don't mind me.
bit of a weird feeling. I felt like we were invincible for a stage.
Can't believe we're not going to be 22-0. It's a real
Uh,
shock to me, to be honest.
yeah, I thought we'd have this one wrapped up by June, and then we'd win the next 4 in a row. But it is what it is.
I mean, we've won 3 flags in 3 weeks. I think we deserve to just take a week off and then have a rest, just so we can enjoy the 3 flags that we did win.
Yeah, give the other teams a run around. They need their success.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there wasn't one major talking point throughout the week. It was pretty quiet considering what happened in the last 3 weeks. But we will start with something that has happened or that has come to light anyway today, which is unfortunately something which we're going to have to talk about. And what we are alluding to is the fact that there was racial abuse sent towards Marbiel Chol I'm assuming in response to the game against Carlton. It's just another reminder. It's where, like we said last week, it seems like we're saying this every single week, but we're just so far behind, and it keeps happening week after week. It seems like, and it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, I just saw it like 10 minutes ago. Someone had messaged him on Instagram. Good on him for calling it out. I almost feel like we're at this really weird point with it all where whatever's going on right now just isn't working. And I wonder what the next frontier is for that. I know that there's been conversations around making, social media accounts, making them backed by like an ID. I think that's a very interesting thing there as well, because obviously the internet came around and it allowed people to have anonymity. Have I said that right? I don't know. It allowed people to be anonymous, and it allowed people to create as many accounts as they wanted to, and allowed for a lack of accountability, I guess. And like, it's just we're miles off it. We're miles off it, and all we can do is just call it out every time it happens. But let's be honest, it's happening every week.
Yeah, it's again like another reminder that it's every time it happens and we call it out, we think we're doing the right thing by calling it out and by addressing it, but it doesn't seem like it's making any difference, does it?
No,
It's
not at all. The punishment is not severe enough at the moment.
Yeah.
You might get called out, you might get screenshotted, but it's okay because you're doing it from an account that you don't care about because it's a burner account or whatever the case may be. So we've got to figure out a way. The only thing I can think of right now is really just putting an identification tool behind an account, and that'll actually stop a lot of other shit that goes on as well. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
He was great, Marbiel. Good on him.
Yeah.
He's been good for the last few weeks.
Played very well yesterday, and I mean, touching on that identification thing, obviously in theory, rather, that is a good idea because you're accountable for your actions at that stage, but there is obviously that's not going to be a quick fix, is it? Because people will find a way to get around it and maintain that that burner account type thing. But yeah, it seems that in the digital age, people are not getting away with it more, but it feels like it's happening more, especially in recent times. Is that something you would agree with?
I don't know if it's more. It's probably just more visible because we live in the social media world. I think deeply, systemically, it's just there.
Yeah,
it's just constantly there, and it's going to take decades for it to go away. Like, we're only just starting, and I mean, if you look back to like the use of the word "wog," for example, like even that still gets used in a different. It's not dissimilar. It's like a tree, a branch on the same tree. That's only starting to be a little bit more of an old timer thing to say or refer to. So I don't know. Like, honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea what to say or do next. That's the truth.
Yeah, because It almost feels like we're overwhelmed by it all because it just seems like it's happening every week. Like last week with Cyril, and it just seems like it's coming in waves, and it seems one step forward, two steps backwards, which it really should be 4 steps forward in stamping this out. But there's just a group of people who don't seem that it's an issue, and it's a vocal minority. I think ruining it for everyone else.
It always is.
It's how life works, unfortunately.
Mm.
I think we spoke about that, and we spoke about obviously with Cyril last week. So I think we should move on because we could really speak about it for ages because there's so much wrong with it. But let's go back to the footy and let's speak on Thursday night. And obviously Melbourne were really good, and we all know that. But is Ken Hinkley's job on a knife edge?
Oh, I don't know. He's under pressure. He's under a lot of pressure. And the media love to talk about this. I don't really get comfortable talking about this, to be honest. I don't know. He's under the pump for sure. And, he's obviously been there a long time, and they've had their chances to win a flag. And some may think that they've blown this year already. I don't think they're completely out of it just yet. I think Sydney were 0-6 in 2016 and made the final. So I still think Port have plenty of great players there to get themselves back into the mix. I can't believe we're playing them this week. It just makes me sick. It makes me sick that we're playing them this week. I have like a hole in my stomach thinking about Sunday.
Yeah, it's one or two things that's going to happen is we're going to finish their season off. We're going to put the nail in the coffin, or we're going to play them into form. They're going to be 1-4. They're going to be up and about, and they're going to be back. So, I mean, history says that Carlton will play Port into form, and Jeremy Finlayson will come in and kick 8 for whatever reason. But who knows? It's going to be a very intense watch on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I got a message on Friday night. Certain Ari Stamatako sent me a clip of me saying that surely Port Adelaide couldn't lose this game, and surely they'd show something. So I really did enjoy that. Thanks for that, bro.
Yeah,
but
got you back.
I think what I said still stands. Like, they're just such a proud club. They really are, and they're a great club. I've had the pleasure of venturing to the inside just briefly while they were in Shanghai, and I've seen how they talk to people and how they operate, from afar, but also I got to follow them around for a couple of weeks at a time every year. They're such a good group on the field and off the field, and it's going to turn. It's going to turn. They're not that bad. Yeah. They're not that bad.
I think we also see it through injuries. Like Leo and Charlie Dixon have been massive for them for the past couple of seasons, and missing them has really shown that they may be more important than your midfield to an extent, because if you don't have that full forward, that full back, those real pillars, it really puts your season, and it changes structure completely, because Port look a shadow of what they were last year. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just thinking from our point of view, like if we lost, well, we haven't had Charlie Curnow for a while, the last few years. If we lost, Charlie and Jacob, or Charlie and Marchbank, if you want to look at it that way, it affects how good you can be. Your Alir is their, what's he like, their best sort of intercept guy.
Yeah.
Dixon is their key forward as well, and then they've got other injuries too. I think Fantasia's a big loss for them. And when you lose your top liners, it impacts most, if not every team. So it is a real thing. I know that fans, we like to say, no excuses, the system should hold up, but there just are certain players that you can't afford to lose every week.
Yeah, and another player that they have lost is Ollie Wines. Now, that was freak, I think, is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, this is serious stuff right now.
Yeah,
very serious. And you know what? I'm really shocked and pleased that the Sunday Footy Show brought it up. I'm stunned that they brought it up. I did not expect them to really talk about it. I thought they'd be gagged. Kind of half expect an apology to come, because I think the government might get involved with that. But why can't we ask the question about what's behind Ollie Wines' issue? Like, what? I mean, I think they've got to run tests and they've got to find out and confirm. But what a terrible story this is turning out to potentially be.
I know, and it's not only once. Hayden Crozier against Carlton obviously is a different style in terms of I don't know the specifics, but I know it wasn't exactly the same. But it's weird. I think it's there's something under the surface here which needs to be not called out, but it needs to be spoken about because we can't just live in a fantasy world where everything's a coincidence.
Yeah, I think the rule of the mathematics says that there is going to be a percentage of players, coaches, people who, it already has happened in the world of sport. It's just it's like this dirty little conversation that we're not allowed to talk about. It's
Yeah,
really strange.
yeah, and like you said, it's not just happening in this country; it's all over the world, and I think there is an increase in players having these types of injuries or illnesses in the wake of it. So it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not this will happen again. Hopefully, it doesn't. Fingers crossed. This is the worst of it because
Yeah.
you don't want to see a champion like ones go down under
No.
any circumstance, but especially under these ones, it's hopefully fingers crossed that this is the worst that it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Fingers crossed for Ollie, and he's a superstar. So
Yeah, he's a
Brownlow
gun.
medalist, obviously, and I just hope that he gets back to full health.
Yeah, that's the number one priority. I think that's. I mean, I've got here. Will Carlton play Port back into form? Do you think? Do you say that there's a possibility of that happening?
I don't want to talk about it.
Are we still scarred from last night? All right, we
I
won't
don't
do
want
that.
to talk about it. We're still scarred from fucking 17 straight goals.
And then Robbie Gray beforehand. And I think it's written personally that we put him to the sword, but it's Carlton, so we're not going to do it.
I'm petrified about this Sunday. I'm telling you now, I'm petrified.
Here we
But
go.
I don't want to let the thoughts come
Yeah,
through me. So I'm just trying to stay on top of it. But this Port are a team very much like the Suns were, in that you give them a sniff, and if you show them that you're 2.5% off, they will literally come for our throats
yeah.
and put us away.
Yeah, I spoke to Nathan from the Carlton Rap last night, and he was really about this. If we get on top early, he said that the team that gets on top early will stay on top. I think
Yeah,
it's if you get on top early and you really put him to the sword, which we should have done against Hawthorn, in my opinion. We were seven goals up. We really should have. I know Hawthorn are a good side, but you look at what St Kilda did to them yesterday. There's hopefully that if we can get on top early, we can put them to the sword because they'll be ready to go from the first bounce. There's going to be no give in that game.
yeah, agreed.
Moving to another side who's had a relatively poor start, the GWS Giants. Now they sit 1-3. Can they still make finals? I think they can, but it's looking touch and go at this stage based on the way they're playing.
Yeah, I think with the results of Port, the results of the Doggies, and the results of the Giants, who are all good, I would say they're still
Yeah,
good sides. I think what it's going to do for the ladder this year will mean that a team that wins 11, like the Bombers did last year, can still make the 8. I think traditionally it's kind of been
12.
win 12 and you get in.
Yeah, 11's
Um,
like percentage if
yeah,
you're lucky. Yeah.
so I think what it's doing, I actually think low key the competition is evening out another layer.
Well, anyone can beat anyone, and we're seeing
Yeah,
that. We've seen that for the first
100%.
month.
Yeah, I think we're finally in a situation now where anyone can beat anyone. I think it took a while when the Giants came in, the Suns came in, and obviously the Suns kind of had their issues as well and sort of went down again. But they're not babies anymore, the Suns, and the Giants
Yeah,
clearly are not. The Giants are crazy. On paper, they're the most scary team
ridiculous. Yeah,
to look at. It just goes to show, are they connected? Are they not? I mean, Toby Green's a big part of what they do. I think he's a big part of their identity.
yeah,
And I feel like they just
because
walk taller when he plays.
yeah, because he kind of is that barometer in the sense of like he's obviously a superstar, but the way he conducts himself is very. He's got an us against them mentality. I feel,
Mm,
and it's in it, and that kind of encapsulates what the Giants are about because they came into the league They were given picks. They were pretty much spoon fed by the AFL, and they're kind of no one really likes them in a sense, or no one really has an. Everyone's very apathetic towards them. No one really has an opinion of them. So, I mean, if you ask the Western Bulldogs fans that, they might have a different opinion, but it's that thing of we need to create this hate us type mentality, which Toby Green really exuberates.
Yeah, yeah, they're an interesting case. It's I don't know, like if they weren't a Sydney team and if they were a Victorian team, they would be under the pump. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
Well, I can imagine if they were us because we have been like them in terms of our performances, given what we believe to be in terms of our talent. But yeah, it's I kind of don't want them to be good because it's just another team that we have to try and conquer, and we got to play them twice.
yeah.
We don't have a good record against them, but yeah, I don't know. It's do you think he's going to last? Do you think he'll stay with them and coach them to a flag, or
Well, that was going to be the next talking point: is has Leon Cameron blown that chance? Because you look at that team from 16, 17, 18, and even 19 when they made it, ridiculous. Like the talent was out of this world, and they fell short in a couple of prelims. Obviously, they fell short in 2019, and they got. I think that grand final loss really, really hurt them. I think you look at what Geelong did to Port in 2007.
mm,
Losing in that fashion in a grand final is very. It hurts. It sets a football club back many years. So, do you think that he's blown the chance to win a flag?
well, not yet because the season's still alive this year. I know they're 1-3, so not yet. I mean, right in this moment, it's pretty tough to see them winning the flag in 2022. Crazier things have happened. Um, I think the thing with the Giants though is correct me if I'm wrong. Over the last couple of years, they haven't lost stars. Like some of I think once
Yeah,
Cornelio stayed,
yeah. They
there
had that
seemed to
period where
be
Cornelio, Whitfield, and Green all re-signed relatively
yes.
quickly. I think. Yeah,
I think that's important. And then I think they've got this next wave who have come after Cornelio and Kelly Whitfield, who are starting to come through. And
yeah,
for their sake, I want them to be, a good club, and I think it's good for the competition if they're a good club and competitive. I don't want them to lose those players anymore. I mean, even when you think about it now, of all those Giants that left to go to the big Victorian clubs, which one of them has really been a game changer? Really, like, I mean, you kind of there's this notion that you got to overpay to get
yeah.
players in the door, and that seems to be what teams have done. So I'm trying to think. I think Taylor Adams has been a good one. Trelaw's
Trelaw's
obviously
good.
been a
Yeah.
good one. Um,
Zach Williams. No wait,
he was good
not
this
yet.
week, Zachy
Anyway,
boy. He was
he was. He
absolutely good
was.
this week.
Mr.
Yeah,
Balenciaga.
yeah. But I think they need to. This game's tough. This league's tough, and
Yeah,
you need continuity. And I think they're finally starting to get this group just to stick together. I mean, Toby Green being out for 6 weeks doesn't help as well. And everything seems to be chopping and changing there. I don't know. I'm just very mindful on talking about them negatively because they will beat us.
yeah. 100. Oh, over there, put in the bank.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So it's that thing. I think it's also different pressure playing in Sydney. I
Yeah.
do think if they were a Melbourne-based team, they would have had a harder time of it because like you said, you look at the players that have come to Melbourne. Like Zach Williams didn't have the best start, and like Jeremy Cameron played well, but he hasn't really hit the ground running. And if they were playing in Victoria from the get go, I feel like they would have had a harder time. But it's you play the circumstances, and they are. I think they have benefited from being in Sydney and getting away from that bubble that everyone talks about, which exists
Mm.
in this state.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an interesting one. I think they'll bounce back over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and they'll play us in round 8 and beat us as always. Are you going to go to that one? And
I might stay home for that one.
okay, yeah, probably good decision.
Yes.
We're going to move on to not a team per se, but a very contentious talking point throughout the week, and it really spawned from the Geelong Brisbane game. It is the umpiring situation, but more importantly, or more specifically rather, the push in the back rule. Obviously, there were some contentious decisions on Thursday night. Obviously, the main one was Tom Hawkins against Harris Andrews. Are we, as a fan base and as a football society and as a community, are we overreacting, or is there a problem at hand here?
I do think there's an issue. I think, I mean, I don't know the one sentence to say as to what the issue is, but I find myself watching games, and I probably think 85 to 90% of the time, I find myself saying, "Oh, that's well umpired," and then out of nowhere there'd just be a howler, and you're just like,
Yeah,
"Oh my god, it's tough." I know it's a tough game, it's a tough sport. You know, being a field umpire in this sport, you're running so much, you're making decisions, heat of the battle, all of that stuff. I just can't help but feel like it's not getting better. And I think the rule changes year in, year out make it a little bit more tricky. And they almost just bring in new interpretations month to month, year to year, just for the sake of it, it seems. And I wonder when we're going to let the game just breathe a little.
yeah,
It's kind of like we're still not sure what game we want.
yeah,
I think that's probably where it stems from. I don't know whether it's a
yeah,
head-high contact or push in the back. I mean, the push in the back, that disaster. It was a
yeah,
disaster the way it was adjudicated this weekend.
yeah. It is a thing of, I think over the last decade, maybe decade and a half, there have been this pretty much rule changes every year, whether it be 666 or the stand rule, which in effect or in theory are done to open the game up, create it, make it more entertaining, right? It's just that it's and I think with that it's meant to become a more watchable game in theory, right? But the inconsistency in the rule and the uncertainty about the rule is what's making the game like a really frustrating to watch at times, because you don't know what's going to be a free kick. You don't know what, like, if even go back to the stand rule, like if you take one step off the mark, it's 50 meters.
Mm,
In my opinion, that's completely unfair in terms of that action makes zero impact on the game and on the kicker. Yet it costs you a goal more often than not. Do you see
yeah.
it the same way?
Yeah, we find ourselves correcting, and then what ends up happening is we end up getting so pedantic about something that it just ends up looking petty for the game.
Yeah,
My gripe at the moment is the VAR, the ARC. My gripe is that because we haven't actually brought in something that's helping the game. What we've done is we've moved the final decision, away from the goal umpire, and
yeah,
we've moved it to someone in the studio. But ultimately, it's still a human decision. And
yeah.
what I'm really disappointed in seeing is that goal umpires in particular have lost their nerve
The
to make a
confidence.
call
Yeah,
that's right in front of them. I remember when we brought it in, it was just for the calls that we were unsure about. But now it's become like you can see a piece of footage where a goal umpire is right here, the ball literally sails right in front of their eyes, and like they're still calling for a review.
yeah,
I'm just mindful that, and I think the same about the VAR. We've just moved the final decision from one human to another, and
yeah.
we still have human error, because there has to be human error. There will never be an 100% officiated game. I don't think. You can have that.
Yeah, I think that's unattainable as well. But I think that, especially when you talk about the arc and VAR as well, it's that innovation in sport is probably where it came to the fore, where like those ideas and those systems where it's like, all right, we need to evolve with the times, right? But I just feel like in an attempt to do that, we've gone backwards because it takes longer. The decisions are more often than not accurate, or if they are, it's so minuscule that, like, especially maybe not in AFL, because arc is kind of like it's touched or it's not, but whereas in soccer it's a lot more arbitrary, the decision. But I just feel like in an attempt to make the game more modern, we've taken away what's good about it and we've just slowed it down and we've made everything really really pedantic and just unnecessary.
I don't mind having the system, but put the infrastructure there to have it. If
Yeah,
you're gonna have the arc, have the right cameras, have 8K quality cameras that can pick up if the ball is touched. The fact that we're in 2022 and we have a score review system and we don't have the cameras to pick up the flight of the ball, and if it's clearly touched like the NFL do, and the fact that we haven't invested in that is laughable to me. I
Yeah.
don't believe it. I actually
Yeah.
don't believe it. And then I think it's a battle between AFL and broadcasting. The AFL will say, well, no, the broadcasting need to pay for it or organize it. And the broadcasting will say, well, no, this is really an AFL thing. I think that's what the battle is. I think.
Yeah.
I don't care who needs to pay for it. Pay for it.
Yeah. And even with the score review, we see a lot of times they look at the score review, they
Mm,
make a decision, and then 2 minutes later, we see a different camera angle which shows that it was the wrong decision.
mm.
Why can't every camera angle be used? It seems as though they're placing unnecessary restrictions, or they're just not being made like they're not being made available to all the resources, which is just counterintuitive to what the arc is meant to do.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's now going back on the umpiring. Do you think this game is too hard to umpire consistently in terms of
Yeah.
there's too much going on?
Yeah. I think it's difficult. I mean, the umpires are also they're not full time, which I don't understand why. I don't know. Maybe can we invest more into them, and would it be more beneficial for them to be full time and coming in and working on their craft, watching footage every day? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, I do think it's a very tough game to officiate, and I also do understand the AFL stance on umpire abuse. I really do, because at the lower levels, who in their right mind would umpire?
yeah, and
You
and
know?
that's I think they said something like 6,000 short or something around that figure,
Yeah,
or like they lost 6,000 umpires or something like that, and maybe that's probably why the abuse rule came in, which, in my opinion, is very arbitrary. Like, from my view, what one umpire constitutes abuse will be different to another, whereas
correct.
rules should be universal for everyone. So it's just adding more uncertainty. Like in theory, it's good to stamp out umpire abuse. We want to stamp out abuse in all forms of the game, right? Or like hurtful abuse, and it just seems again counterintuitive. One step forward, two steps backwards.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you can bring in any rule you want, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about human beings um, applying the rule, it's always going to have an element of subjectivity to it based
Yeah,
on the individual. It just is, and that's just grey. This is a grey area, and the imperfection is kind of the beauty of it all, because it's not perfect, and it actually creates the storylines and the drama, and maybe we just need to appreciate the fact that it's not perfect. And I mean, I don't know what the right level of chasing for perfection is in this case, but yeah, it's just one of those mysteries.
yeah. Do you think if the umpires were full time, it would remove a lot of that human error in a sense?
I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know. It just seems like it sounds good.
Yeah,
From in my opinion, I feel like it sounds better that they'd be full time and be able. I mean, I can only imagine it would do better to be able to study, invest more time into watching footage. I'm sure they already do that. I don't know what the split of time is, but I would imagine it can only help them.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where you complain like I heard Razor Ray speak about this in an interview. He's like, he said something along the lines of umpires have such little impact over the game in
Mm,
terms of, like, if you look at, for example, that Hawkins decision, like 3 minutes after or whatever it was, Cam Rayner missed from 10 meters out. So
mm.
it's like kicked it on the full. So it's like they really don't make as big of an impact as people think. Yet we speak about them pretty much every week because there's these inconsistencies and these very arbitrary decisions which some people deem correct, some people deem incorrect. So it's one of those tricky positions, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We just hope that it gets better.
Yeah, we can never get it right, and we can only hope that it just improves. But it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a long wait, in my opinion.
On a side note, I think what Razor Ray does for the umpiring and for the AFL is so underrated. The fact that he speaks on SEN, and I would challenge anyone who has a crack at Razor Ray. I think he is a fucking fantastic part of this game, and I kind of hope more umpires would be a bit more vocal, so we could understand them a little bit more. Because I feel like we don't have empathy for umpiring because it's just kind of like we don't hear from them. They don't talk. I get it. They get abused. I get all of that. I think one of the ways to mend any relationship between any two sides to any equation is to have empathy for the other side. So you have to try and understand them. I learn a lot just from listening to him every week over the last couple of years, go on SEN and just talk and be honest and be candid and just say, look, listen, we're just not going to get it right. We muff this one up. We muff that one up. We try our best. We get it right. We get it wrong. I think when you hear that as another human, you can empathize with that.
Yeah, maybe that goes back to the discussion of, I know in footy it is a lot more not publicised, but you do hear from the umpires during the game. They are marked up. Do you think having that audio available on a widespread platform, in a sense, could help improve that empathy for them? If you can hear them as they make the decision, and then at least you don't have to agree with them, but at least understand where they're coming from.
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. I get why they brought it in. I get why it's available. It's also good for the broadcast as well. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I know in soccer that's lacking, especially VAR. So maybe that's an avenue which world sport needs to go down even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we've spoken about umpiring for a while. I think that's all we need to speak about for it because we'll go insane. But let's move on to the rest moment of the round. And so for those of you who didn't watch the first 3 episodes, firstly, go back and watch them. But basically every week we're going to have a moment of the rounds which we will decide on. And then at the end of the season, the audience will vote on the rest moments of the year. Now, this week there wasn't an after the siren goal, there wasn't some bloke kicking 1,000, but I've gone with Isaac Heaney's goal to sink North at the death. He's a superstar, isn't
he? He is a superstar. Tough for North. That was really tough. They were gallant. They fought hard all day, but the Swans just did what they needed to do, and it wasn't a pretty win, but that's why they're I think they're a top 4 side.
Yeah, and it was a icing on the cake moment from a really classy player. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, especially this season. He's played very, very well. And I mean, speaking on that game just briefly, North did really shoot themselves in the foot. They had a chance to go inside 50 deep, and I can't remember who it was, but just maybe a little bit of naivety kicking it to
it was. I think it was Artu Bosunvalagi.
Yeah, I think maybe
late in the game. Yeah,
maybe just. I mean, they'll learn from that because they were a kick inside 50 away from winning it, and then 10 seconds later, Heaney kicks the sealer. So it's one of those sliding doors moments which a young team is going to have to learn, and I know Carlton have had many of those moments over the years. So
correct.
Yes, I think we're slightly short episode this week, but I think we're done unless there's anything you want to speak about. The lights all good. Did you go to any games?
The lights are good, mate. The lights are good. See,
good.
The lights are on a good percentage now. There's nothing else to talk on. I guess people can just watch my tips video when it comes out. I got 3 this week, but
wow,
the disaster. I can't believe I'm filming myself do tips every week. Why? I know I'm a bad tipper. I don't know why I started doing it, but
who'd you tip? I apologize. I didn't watch, but I know you tip Port. Did you tip Brisbane as well?
Tipped the Giants. Tipped Carlton. Tipped Collingwood. Tipped. Yeah, I tipped 3 right. So anyway,
I mean, you did tip Carlton. That's interesting. I'm a very type person where tip against your own team because if you lose, at least you get your tip right.
Well, what if you lose? What if you tip against your team and they win?
Then your team wins. Then you're happy.
Yeah, but then you're a plastic supporter.
No, come on. Plastic supporter, you reckon? All right, I think we're done. We're done. Oh, well, I'm pretty sure there's record of you tipping against Carlton at various stages. Maybe not this year, but definitely last.
Definitely.
Yeah.
definitely.
So, I mean,
But
plastic supporter doing a YouTube channel about Carlton. All right.
love it. Love it.
There we
Good
go.
to see you.
All right. We're
All right,
done.
mate.
We're done. All right. Thank you all very much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching and go the Blues.
Go Blues.